Welcome to my tutorial for the Revenge of Shinobi for the Sega Genesis, and this is going to be easy mode. And if you're just trying to beat easy mode, then I have a few easy methods that I think will be helpful. You can set your shurikens to 90, and I believe if you set them to 0 and wait a few seconds, it'll go to infinite, but I consider that a cheat code, so I didn't use that. But 90 shurikens is a pretty good number. You will run out of them sometimes, most likely, but it's a pretty good number. Whenever you do your jumping attack with the shurikens, you waste about 10 of them at once, so that's where a lot of them get wasted. So you don't want to do that for no good reason. Otherwise you will drain them. So basically what I did was I just did a playthrough of the easy mode to match what I did on the Sega CD compilation version many years ago when I owned it on Sega CD. But I wanted to actually officially beat the Genesis version for my Genesis kill list, so I could put it in that section. So I figured in the meantime I would just, replicate what I did before just by beating easy mode, which is, no big deal, but just something to get done and put on the list. And in doing that, I figured I would also get a review video out of it, which I will review the game and, just make a quick tutorial. This isn't a refined tutorial like some of my other tutorials where I, went back and refined gameplay footage with, save and load states to really get each section with no damage. And things like that, like I did with Ninja Gaiden 3 for the NES, where I did a no damage tutorial. This is not going to be like that, but I think these strategies will be useful for a lot of players. If you're just looking to beat easy mode and you've never beat the game before, I think it'll be helpful. But it's really only showing my successful segments through the game. So what I did for this tutorial is I edited it down from my full playthrough. So I edited out all the deaths. So you're going to see sometimes my lives might boost up, or I may suddenly have magic at the beginning of a section. That's because the deaths are edited out. So that's how that works. And then for the final boss, I spliced in my practice run footage for the final boss, where I was able to get the good ending by saving the woman and doing it on very low damage. So that's what I'm going to show for the tutorial, since that shows how to do that pretty well. So it's more of a demonstrative type of video. But I do have my full unedited easy run, which, was kind of sloppy. And a lot of this footage, like I said, is not going to be real clean, like some of my other videos. But I figured it would be good enough to make a tutorial, do some commentary, and, just give a few general strategies to make some parts very easy. See, in easy mode, the only difference I noticed gameplay-wise, I practiced the game first on normal with save states. I did a practice run of all the stages, using save states to refine sections and practice sections as needed. And then I switched it to easy for my main playthrough. And when I put it on easy, the only gameplay difference I noticed was that you get more lives on easy. So on easy, you start with 9 lives per continue, and you have 3 continues. If you waste all 9 lives, you'll be sent to the beginning of the stage. And then you have, and then for the lives, if you lose a life, you're put back to the last checkpoint. Basically, the checkpoints in this game, there's not really checkpoints, but there is different stage sections. So each new little stage is considered a checkpoint. So each one usually has a different theme. So that's how you know when you're in a different area. It just looks different. And that's usually the next checkpoint, if you want to call it that. Similar to Ninja Gaiden for NES, that kind of formula where your lives will start you on the last section you got to. And if you exhaust all lives, and continue, then you'll be sent back to the beginning of the stage. So with all that in mind, you can pull a lot of bullshit using suicide magic on bosses. So there's a lot of bosses where you don't really even have to learn how to fight them, which is what I did, because I was just going for a completion. And this wasn't intended to be a tutorial or anything, really. I was just, going for to get it on my list. It took me around 4 hours and 58 minutes to beat on easy. So it's a challenging game even on easy. And of course I had to relearn most of it because I didn't remember. It was so long ago that I beat it. For this first boss, you just want to double jump and fire out all your shurikens. Double jumping is a little tricky because you have to press the second jump command at the peak of your jump to do a double jump where you roll into a ball. And once you do that, you hit the shuriken again and you'll fire out 10 shurikens. But the problem with that is that it wastes them really fast. It may be 8 shurikens. It's something like that, but it's a lot. And it will drain your shurikens real fast. So here, what I do is I waste up all my shurikens by double jumping from this little platform and hitting them, and then I just use my fire pole magic to finish them off. And I'd recommend doing the fire magic when he's open, when his sword is down, is when you strike. He may block it if you don't do it that way, so make sure you use magic when the bosses are open. That guarantees that the hits get in with any magic, really. So another thing to keep in mind is that in this game, you get one magic use for each life. So if you do lose a life without using your magic, it's kind of a waste because you have an invincibility magic, and that can allow you to take some extra damage. So you can always use that, or, jump magic. I recommend using jump magic here. It makes this part pretty easy. Just try to clear out the enemies and get on the platforms, and just jump across as needed. It makes this part a lot easier. Without jump magic, it can be quite a bit harder. But you do have to, make sure that you fire your shurikens ahead of time to take out enemies as you move forward. So I do recommend using that double jump shuriken attack pretty liberally in this area because it clears out a lot of the enemies and makes it safer for you to get through. This game does have really, really severe knockback, like games like Ninja Gaiden for NES, Castlevania, where if you get hit, you do get knocked back. Now keep in mind, using the electricity magic, which is the one that shows a lightning bolt, a bunch of lightning in the top, if you use that magic, it allows you to absorb a few hits without taking damage to your health bar. But even more important than that, it eliminates any knockback from getting hit. So if you have that equipped, you can actually get through a lot of areas easily because you don't have to worry about getting knocked into the pits for a few hits. So keep that in mind. It's definitely useful. Now the footage here is a little janky because when I combined it in the program I used to combine videos, it kind of came out fucked up for some reason. And sometimes that happens when I try to combine videos. I don't really know a good way around that. But hopefully it shows everything decently enough. This is actually the worst I've seen it so far, but maybe it'll clear up a little bit. So for this section, I recommend taking the high path. And again, don't be afraid to use your magic if you already lost a life, or if if you have a magic use, don't be afraid to use it if you need it. But this part is actually really easy. I would recommend probably just beating this normally, just staying at the top and trying to jump across and stay on the highest parts of the buildings. Makes it very easy. You can skip most of the enemies. Just watch out for bombs hidden in the crates. So for this boss, I recommend using the lightning magic if you have it available. It makes it easy to finish this guy, because it's a little tricky sometimes not to get hit by him. You just want to get right under where he's jumping, and when he falls down, you start striking him with your trips or your shurikens. I usually try to get him with my foot and try to sweep him. And after you do enough damage, you'll see he just turns into a shadow form. And then at that point, you can spam shurikens and get him stun locked in a corner and finish him off very easily. And the lightning magic makes it pretty easy if you have it available. If not, you can still do it, but I always use it when I have it. I find it makes it a lot easier. I think you may even get your... Actually, I don't know. I don't think you get your magic replenished between stages, but... of course, if you die, you will get another magic use. You can also pick up these Asian symbols, which will restore one magic use. What's odd about this game is, even if you have a few magic uses stored up, I don't think it shows anywhere how many magic uses you have. So, you may have two, but you won't know unless you've been keeping track. Just something to keep in mind. I think you can store multiple magic charges in this game, I believe. Though, I don't really remember because I didn't really have to do that, as far as I remember. So, that is something to look into. I believe in Shinobi 3, you can definitely store multiple magic charges. See, I got one here. This is another magic charge up here. Now, this is the first stage to introduce switching planes, basically, by double jumping. Every time you double jump, you will go into either the back area or the foreground. So... a lot of times you can bypass enemies by not going where they're at. So you do get a free magic in here, so I recommend using the lightning magic at the very least. And maybe picking up the symbol so you have an extra one to use later for the next area. But it's good to use lightning magic here because it makes it very easy. And of course, you're going to be switching into the background and foreground. Now, if you're playing on normal, you can't use magic so liberally, and you can't spam suicide magic because you only have a few lives to work with on each continue on normal. So it does change the way you play. That's the easiest thing about easy, is that you can do suicide spam and you can spam some of the magic. So it definitely makes it considerably easier, but still challenging for a first playthrough. I mean, it's still moderately challenging for these type of games. Nothing brutal though, but I wouldn't call it easy. It's probably as hard as something like Contra for NES, without any codes, obviously. But it's probably on about that level of difficulty, maybe even a little harder. So it's still decently challenging even on easy, but nothing mind blowing. So here, you could either use the jump magic or the invincibility magic at the beginning of this area. Jump magic works pretty well because you can kind of just hover through shit. And it makes it kind of easy to just, jump through the grenades and get to this next area. But I think invincibility probably works even a little bit better on this part. So maybe use the invincibility magic. See, I didn't remember all the magics and things that I used in my practice session because when I played this again, it was a few days later. I just got a PS5, so I was working on this game. Then I got the PS5 through eBay for about $200 more than retail. So yeah, not a great deal, but I was able to at least get a working one. But I decided to fucking give in and just do it. It didn't seem like it was getting any easier to get the shit. So then I was fucking around with that for a few days. So then I forgot, some of the stuff that I practiced, I forgot because I didn't go back to it until a few days later after my practice run of the full game. So for this part, I do a very lazy method. You're going to see me do suicide spam for the first time. Get in here, and when this thing goes up, just use 2 suicide magics. Now, I don't think you actually have to get in there like that, but it doesn't really matter. But if you do 2 suicide magics, which is the one where it shows the explosion on the far right, if you do 2 of those, you will take it out as long as you do it while the boss is revealed like that. So yeah, it does sacrifice 2 lives, but otherwise that fight can be kind of tedious and long, and I didn't feel like practicing it and actually learning it. Because like I said, I was just going for the kill, and easy mode gives you a lot of lives to burn. So as long as you can play the stages well, you have plenty of lives to work with on easy, and that means plenty of magic that you can use, and a lot of suicide spam that you can use, as long as you plan ahead, That's what this will help you with in the tutorial, is kind of planning where to spam the suicide. Because you don't want to waste the suicide magics. They do burn your lives. So you don't want to waste them and then completely fail and lose a continue and have to start the stage over, because then you just wasted a bunch of lives. But the way it works is there's a few things to keep in mind with suicide magic. Suicide magic, you need to have 1 magic charge remaining to use the suicide magic, obviously. But also, the suicide magic will burn your current life. It will destroy your current life. So it's good to use it when your current health bar is down to the bottom, because then you'll restore and you'll get another full health bar again. So you might as well use it when you've exhausted most of your health. Also, when you use it, you get another magic use back. That's why you can chain suicide magic, because every time you use it, it restores you to how you would be if you had a fresh life. So the idea is to kind of budget those and not waste them for no reason. You want to use them, basically when your health is low for the most part. And only on bosses. There's only a few bosses where you would want to spam it if you don't feel like learning to fight them. And it also kind of just saves time too, because those bosses, they could take a little while to beat. So it could be a little faster to just use a few suicide. But it is, of course, it's a risk because you are burning lives. But you do get a lot of fucking lives. You even get 1-ups in this game. There's not tons of them, but there is a lot of 1-ups based on points that you get, a decent amount based on your score. I guess there is an invisible score counter somewhere, because you do seem to get 1-ups every so often. And I'm assuming that it's based on points. But you can also pick up a few 1-ups in the environment. Some of them are hidden or in boxes. So for this part, it's very easy. Whenever you see these Rambo fucking clones, you can usually kick them in the head with a trip kick from on top of like a piece of junk or something. And the rest of them, just take it slow and just inch the screen and take out all the enemies with your jumping, shrieking attacks and shit like that. Very easy if you take it carefully. So for this one, I like to use jump magic on this section. I recommend using it for this section. I was trying to decide here which magic that I would use for this section, because like I said, I forgot everything I did. Well, not everything, but I forgot a lot of the nuances of what I did in my practice session, since I played this a few days after practicing. So it is easy to forget all the smaller details. I didn't even practice the stages very much at all. I mainly just used the save state practice to practice the bosses, not a ton of practice on the stages. I mean, I would beat the sections once, and that was my practice. So, it wasn't really the kind of thing that would stick in my mind afterwards for too long. So I just kind of improvised. But I had a general idea. I remembered enough of it to where it didn't take me too long to beat it after doing my practice session. So with the jump magic, you don't really need it, but it does make getting up into some of these areas easier. It is optional, though. I don't believe you need the jump magic for this part, but I always just used it. I found it made this part a lot easier. It is a little dangerous, though, because you can only jump at one height, which is really high, pretty much. So, it is easy to get burned by those burners that are off screen, because you can't really see what's going on with them until it's too late. So you got to be careful with that. But using a double jump, you can bust up here, which may be a little bit of a shortcut. I don't think there's any way you could do that without the jump magic. So I think it does make this part a little easier. For this one, you just want to kind of walk down and fall onto this thing. Don't try to jump. It's easy to fall into the fire if you try jumping, then it gets sloppy. Just walk down. Wait for those fires to come out on the far right, and then make your jump down. And as you're dropping down, the flames will go away. It'll give you enough time to get up in there. And you want to do the same type of thing for the other flame at the end. With this Terminator guy, again, I was super lazy and relied on suicide spam. Since I wasn't going for a 1cc, and like I said, I knew I would get through with all the lives they give you. That's why I'm saying this tutorial is specifically for easy mode. The strategies are not for normal mode for the most part. Aside from the actual sections. I mean, some of those strategies you could probably use on normal, but this is a real rough tutorial of me just, beating the game and editing it down. So I didn't refine this at all. So I believe, you want to do some damage to the guy normally, but when your health gets low, use another suicide magic, and that's it. And once he turns into the Terminator, you don't have to use any magic or anything. He's dead. It's just a little scene. Just watch out because he explodes, and it may injure you. I'm not sure. I always get away from it. So now for this upcoming part, if you're willing to use the jump magic, you can make this whole section a complete joke. So what you want to do is use the jump magic and then basically double jump your way, up through all the platforms and skip everything pretty much. If you want to get some boxes, you can do that if you want. If there's stuff that you want to get. But I don't bother because, like I said, they give you so many fucking lives on easy. I don't bother doing a lot of collecting in easy mode as far as items are concerned. I collect a few things here and there, but overall I don't go crazy with it. But of course, if you're on low shurikens and playing on a harder setting, then you're going to want to, play differently, obviously. But so you can skip this whole section pretty much. It's almost like a speed run of that section with the jump magic. Super easy. And that section can be a little challenging otherwise. Now, this is the hardest section in the game for me. When I revisited this, I actually lost my continue here. So this is the section that gave me the most trouble of any section in the game, strangely enough. It is kind of a pain in the ass because if the red cars hit you, they take like half your health. And, you got a lot of these fucking nuns transforming and a lot of other bullshit going on. What I recommend doing for this is, you see where I use the invincibility magic? I recommend waiting to that point in the stage and then using it there. Then you can collect your health. The reason I use the invincibility magic a little late in the stage is because I want to maximize how many hits I can take. So, since I got hit a few times on my way up to that point, I use the magic to preserve the rest of my health so I don't get finished off. And then there's a heart, so I'm able to collect some of my health back. And then from that point, I use the invincibility magic to kind of just bust through the rest. Keep in mind that you can also stay in the top area and you can walk through a large part of that area. Now, there's a 1-up down there, but I'm not sure how to get that. It looks like a bad joke. I'm not sure how the fuck you would even get that. It seems like it's there as like a troll kind of joke, But you can try. But, yeah, for a large portion near the end, you can walk through that area on the top portion of the stage. And if you're using invincibility magic, you can kind of just bust through. You also want to try to time your jumping shuriken attacks to where all the women are grouped up on the right or left side of the screen. So when you're coming up to a different plane, when you're switching planes, you can sometimes plan it so that the enemies are grouped on one side and they all get hit by the shurikens. Since you shoot out about 8 of them on your double jump, you can group them all together and you can take them all out sometimes with one blast of shurikens. So that's another effective way to deal with that area. But all these parts you're going to want to practice with save and load states like I did. Do a practice run of the game first. And, then you can do regular attempts at the game. But you really want to do a practice run to make sure you have everything down, especially the bosses. But this boss is very easy if you know what to do. You can see all I'm doing is staying in a certain position and jumping and firing. Now, the last one, the third one, I didn't remember exactly how to do it. But I figured it out, and I'll show you that in a moment. See, I was using my fire magic because I didn't know how to really hit this thing while this lightning was doing all this bullshit. But then, of course, I realized that it was obvious all I had to do was stand in the little gap to the left and just jump and fire. For whatever reason, it didn't cross my mind to do that, at that point. I probably would have remembered it, if I would have done my practice session closer to when I actually did my full runs. But yeah, you just jump and fire here. Just take your time. It's very easy. And for the middle one, you saw I just get real close to it. I duck and I just sweep it. I just do little trip kicks on it until it breaks. So, real self-explanatory. You can see what I'm doing here. You really don't have to waste magic for this part at all. So I recommend just not using the magic and just doing what I'm doing here. But yeah, that previous section gave me the most trouble. But like I said, if you wait a while to use your invincibility magic, you can kind of extend your health that way because you will get a health power up. So you can kind of budget all that shit and kind of just bust through that way. But you do want to play safe with grouping the enemies together and trying to take them out. So yeah, for this part, this first part, it can be a little tricky, but what you're going to want to do is use your invincibility magic. Of course, this is just what I recommend. Like I said, I didn't practice the hell out of these stages or bosses. But yeah, at some point in this area, you're going to want to use the invincibility magic. I got kind of caught up on that asshole, but you'll see that I use it about midway through the stage. So yeah, here I'm using my invincibility magic, which I recommend using because it makes it easier to skip this one part that's kind of annoying, which you'll see in a moment. And you also get a magic power up, which gives you another magic use as well. So, it's not really a waste to use it anyway because you're going to get another one. So when you get down here, since there's no knockback, you can just walk right through that and take the damage. It makes it a lot easier to skip that part. Instead of getting caught between all those enemies, it's a big pain in the ass. So I recommend using the invincibility magic to bypass that. Now there's a little bit of a tricky jump coming up, and initially I thought maybe you needed jump magic to make it, but you don't. You really don't need jump magic, but it may take a few tries. So make sure you get rid of the enemy first, and then if you make your double jump right, you can make that jump. But you have to really be at the edge and really space it out to the edge. It's a little tricky. Normally it would take me a few attempts to get that. So to the left there is a health power up here, but it never really appears for me. It's awkward how you have to get it. I could usually only get it when I'm on the other side of the wall, but of course by the time I get there it's going to be gone. So it seems almost like a joke. But there was a magic use in there that if you notice that I got that extra magic use. It's in that wall, that same wall where the health should have been. So now this part is very easy. I mean, you should have the POW as well, so you're going to do more damage with the powered up shurikens when you get the POW and the sword, obviously. So you can kind of just, kill them with the sword or use the shurikens. It's easy enough to get through here now. This next part can be a little tricky. There's a consistent timing to when these beams shoot by and hit you, but it's a long wait before they come, so it's kind of hard to keep track of. But once you kind of get it in your muscle memory, you have a good feel for when they're going to arrive. But But you still want to play carefully. And, if you think they're about to arrive, then just, wait a little while and then jump them. It's usually better to jump them. Sometimes you can duck them, but I usually have more luck just jumping them. And then you want to use these shurikens to kind of just clear out the way as you move forward. When your health gets low, use a invincibility magic. It makes it easy to get through the rest of this. But yeah, the beams is mostly just about, kind of memorizing the timing and having a good idea of when they're going to, show up. And once you get to this part, the rest is pretty easy. You just want to clear out some of the enemies. There is also a health power up, hidden a bunch. It's hidden amongst a bunch of bombs, but it's easy to get. As long as you take this part slow, you can kind of just clear out the enemies as you move, and it's very easy. I would avoid getting the boxes in those gaps between the train carts because a lot of times it's a bomb. And it's not really worth trying to get that shit most of the time, especially when the beams are coming by. They keep coming by every few seconds, so it makes it irritating. But you get some health right here, so that's like a full health power up. Just watch out for the bombs. Now coming up is the Spider-Man / Batman boss. It's Spider-Man, but he turns into Batman. It's pretty ridiculous. But now I didn't even practice this boss at all. So what I do is I use a suicide magic to take Spider-Man out, which is real cheap, but it works. And only have to sacrifice 1 life to get rid of Spider-Man, so it's not a big deal. Since you get 9 lives on every continue, and there's 1-ups, you got plenty of lives. So once you do that, now Batman appears. So for Batman, I recommend just fighting him normally. He's pretty easy to take out just by throwing shurikens at him. He doesn't take a shit ton of hits. But you do have to watch out for the bats. Spinning attacks work good. Double jump spinning attacks, if you can get them off, will work pretty well. Because he'll most likely get hit if you're facing in his general direction. So it's an easy way to hit him. You can also switch direction, after performing a double jump, you can switch direction and fire in your desired direction. So that's what I was doing there. But very easy once you do that. Spider-Man is probably super fucking easy if you learn how to fight him. I just didn't even bother practicing it because I knew I could just use a suicide to take him out. And like I said, I had a lot of lives to burn. I wasn't even focused on making a tutorial. So a lot of this shit is just going to be, easy exploits and shit like that just to make the game kind of easy to bust through. So for this section, it can be hard if you don't use the jump magic. I think you may need to use jump magic to make one of the jumps, so I'm not certain on that. But for this part, you can kind of just wait and take the Rambo out from that platform. Watch out for bombs that appear. For these guys, you can just kick them, even though your foot shouldn't connect with them. Similar to the junkyard, you can just kick them in the head if you crouch down. So for this part, you want to keep double jumping and firing shurikens. Just keep moving. And you should clear out all the enemies and avoid getting hit by anyone. Now for this part, after you clear out those 2 ninjas, this jump is the hardest in the game. So you want to be right on that edge and then make the double jump. And I think you may need jump magic to make that. Though I'm not sure if jump magic actually gives you a farther horizontal jump. I think it mainly increases your vertical jump. But I could be wrong about that. You may be able to do that without jump magic, but it seems to help for whatever reason. But if you practice it, maybe you'll find you don't need to use a magic there, and maybe you don't need the jump magic. I still think it would make the rest of that level easier with the wider jumps. So if you want, you can grab the shurikens in one of the boxes. So for this part, I recommend using invincibility magic late into the level for the last part. So just make your way, normally and clear out the enemies as you can. The grenade guy can be a little tricky because he'll keep throwing grenades. Sometimes you can get caught up in the grenades. So here I use my invincibility magic. I think also I get another magic replenished in this stage as well. So I think that's why I used it a little early. So you can use it around this point. it's easy to get hit by some of this bullshit. But if you fire and move the screen slow, you'll avoid a lot of the damage. But there's still a lot of enemies that kind of fuck with you and try to get you to move forward and get shot. So there's a lot of screen inching. So yeah, take this guy out with a carefully placed shuriken, or get up and shoot him with a low shot. And you can get that health as well, which is going to help a lot. And there should be another magic pickup if you need it coming up. You want to just keep firing to the right, up and down, and make sure you clear out all the enemies before moving forward, because they stack a lot of enemies in this area. So it helps to just, take your time and try to take them out. You can see there's enemies, on the top, bottom, and multiple layers. So you just want to take your time and just follow the bullet streams. You'll know if the enemies are still alive, because they're going to keep firing. So once all the bullet streams are gone, move to the next series of enemies. And just slowly make your way through here. Now you can get a magic replenishment if you want it, but it's in that lava with all those assholes, so I would avoid it. So now for this part, I almost wasted a continue here because it took 3 suicide magics to take out Godzilla. Because, of course, I didn't bother learning the boss this time. So I used 3 suicide magics, and that actually ended up killing him, but I was down to my last life. So it was really close. But, as long as you have 3 lives to burn, you can take him out. Now, if you really want to be conservative, you could obviously practice and just learn how to fight the boss. But, he seems like he takes a lot of hits, and I just didn't really want to be bothered to learn it, since I was just going for a straight kill. This is definitely a faster way to do it. But I did almost waste another continue doing that. I was cutting it close. So now this is the final stage. And it's not too bad if you understand a few things. So I would say use invincibility magic at the start of this stage. And, just make your way forward by clearing out enemies using the spin attack to, clear shit out. Just take your time. Don't try to run forward unless you know the level. And the spin attack gets those guys that are kind of crouched behind, cover. So it will kind of hit them, take them out. And as long as you keep firing shurikens, from standing to crouching, and you keep alternating, eventually you will take those guys out with the whip. If you have the PAL, you can sword strike that guy and get rid of him that way. I believe that crate has a decent item, but I just didn't bother with it because I had a lot of lives to burn, like I said, and I kind of minimized collecting on this run just because I was going for just a straight kill. So again, you can use a sword to take out those guys that are crouched with the grenades. Watch out for the bombs. If you don't have invincibility on, they can easily knock you into the water. And so can some of the other strikes. So invincibility will keep you from having to get knocked back as well. Now once you get in here, this is the last actual stage before the final boss. So this is kind of home free if you know how to play this. So what you're going to want to do, if you're following my strategy, is you're not even going to bother going to the item room. There is an item room where you can get some pretty good items, but you're not going to bother with that from the way I do it. So you're just going to follow my path that I take here, and this is the way that I, it's specific order of rooms. So you're going to want to go exactly where I go. So you want to go all the way down here to the very end and take that door. And of course, for these guys, eventually a shuriken will get through. It's better than getting close to them, which is kind of dangerous. So take that door at the very end. Now go in the next door. You can just walk straight to the right without even fighting anyone. You'll go right into the next door. Jump immediately, double jump immediately, and now go down here and just kind of skip ahead to the door on the right. Maybe take out the guy with the whip, though. Those guys can be kind of irritating. I probably could have just jumped over him. Watching the video now, I would have just jumped over him, I think, with a double jump or some shit. But there is no timer in this game, at least. So, you You can take your time. For this part, you want to crouch walk to the left, but maybe get both boxes if you want the items. I would suggest using your lightning magic here, because it'll make the rest of the stage very easy. Because there's a room coming up. The next room coming up is going to be packed with flying enemies and all kinds of fucking enemies. It's like a little circus freak show. That's the hardest part of the stage. And it's hard because if you get hit without invincibility magic, you'll probably get knocked into a door you don't want to go into. Because if your body even touches a door, you automatically go in. So drop down, go in this door. Now, if you have the invincibility magic still on, which you should, just kind of bust through here because you're not going to take any knockback damage. So get in close, use your sword, and bust through to this door. So now you're on the final boss. All you got to do is go to the right. You're on the final boss. And I'm going to show how to beat it and get the good ending if you're interested in getting the good ending. I didn't give a shit about the endings, but if you want to save the girl, it's easy to do. Now, most players are going to fire shurikens behind them on the left side of the wall to keep the block from crushing the woman. What I ended up doing is firing the shurikens to the right of the screen, off screen, and you'll actually raise the gate. You'll hear a sound when the gate raises if your shuriken has hit properly. And it's a lot easier to do that because you're already approaching the boss. You don't have to turn around and shoot behind you. You're going to be firing in the direction that you're already moving. It makes it much easier. So I recommend doing that if you're interested in saving the girl. If not, you can let her get crushed. I mean, fuck her, right? You don't have to save her. So aside from that, the main strategy with this boss is to crouch near him and then strike him with either your sword. If you have the POW, you can do a sword strike, which does massive damage. But if not, if you just have no POW, like me, you can, all you got to do is get close to him and duck, and he's going to whip his hair over your head. When he does that, that's when you strike with your shuriken or your sword. So strike. And now, the trick to dodging his hair, it's actually really simple. The trick is that as soon as that hit lands, you need to be double jumping in the opposite direction immediately with no delay. If you're even a little bit slow on that, you'll get hit by his hair. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about the positioning of the hair or waiting for anything. All you have to do is double jump immediately after you strike. You want to be doing it, immediately without any delay. So you got to be ready to bust out. As soon as that hit lands, you should be busting out in the other direction. Now, sometimes you'll take some hits like I did because he gets too close to the left side of the screen and he does these faster hairs. I think those are a little faster. So you may take a few hits from that, but if you have your invincibility magic on, it should be very easy. I only got hit twice here and I was able to save the... I didn't even lose my invincibility magic. And it was pretty easy to do. Now, in my actual run, I failed and didn't save the girl. But like I said, didn't give a shit. But as long as you're firing your shurikens to the right, you try to fire a few every so often, you should be able to save her. Just fire them when you get a chance. And just keep up with the very simple pattern of ducking, letting his hair whip over you, and then you're immediately double jumping to the left side in the opposite direction. As long as you do that immediately, you should take almost no damage on that boss. And this should work for, that should work for any difficulty. I don't think the gameplay has changed much on the other difficulties. That's one guy where suicide spam doesn't seem to work. So, I did actually have to learn how to fight that guy. But like I said, it's easy. Just make sure you practice these parts with save and load states. And of course, write down the directions that you saw me use. Write down all the doors and put them on an index card or something. That's what I did. And then you can just follow it easily. Because you're probably not going to remember it your first time. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.